I think the Pacers, in order to win the night, they may have to bench Roy Hibbert. When you look at the Atlanta Hawks, it's not a knock as anemic as Roy Hibbert has been offensively, just completely lost over the last several weeks, particularly over the last 4 games of regular season. I think he had 2 games where he went scoreless. He scored a combined 9 points in the last 4 games. Didn't do much in game 1 of this series as well. Paul Millsap had their way, just abused Louis Scola and Hibbert and those boys. Jeff Teague just abused George Hill. I'm shocked by that, but it happened. In the end, however, when you look at the Indiana Pacers as they're presently constructed against the Atlanta Hawks, Atlanta's ability to shoot perimeter shots, showing us all they deserve a level of respect that they simply have not received. If you're the Indiana Pacers, the #1 overall seed in the Eastern Conference, you may have to go small. And that's what this is. It's one thing if you're a big boy like Frank Vogel has said continuously to me and others, Skip. He says, we don't adjust to other people. We make them adjust to us. Well, that's about to change. He's going to have to adjust. Because if you had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the middle, who was money offensively, then you can have that kind of mentality. But when you have somebody who is as limited and mechanical offensively as Roy Hibbert, no matter how imposing he could be defensively, if they're pulling him away from the basket, if Jeff Teague uses that as an opportunity to get to the paint with ease, and there's no one there to stop him, you've got a problem because you don't have any quickness in the lineup with the combination of Hibbert and West. So you may have to go small, putting somebody like West in the middle and getting some quicker dudes up in there, or put Mahimi in the game instead of Hibbert. You've got to find a way to get quicker against Atlanta so you can defend these perimeter players that they have, and a Paul Millsap who has the ability to step away from the basket. And the only way to do that is to get Hibbert out the game for this series. I think right now we've gotten to the point where that may be their hope, along with either Lance Stevenson or Paul George guarding Teague and taking that onus away from George Hill, because George Hill can't guard Teague.
Who you got tonight?
I'm picking Indiana. I'm still holding out hope that they got a chance to make things interesting within the Eastern Conference, because I believe if they lose this game, they lose the series.
I got Atlanta tonight, and I'll tell you why. Because I can't see any evidence that would lead me to pick the Pacers, unless you just want to do the odds are in their favor to finally bounce back and look like a resemblance of the team we used to know. I'm not buying it, Stephen A. I told you Saturday night, when that game finished, I sat back and said, hey, if I hadn't known that that one team for about half a year was the best team in the NBA and this other team nearly missed the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, I would have thought that team that almost missed the playoffs was clearly the superior team. And I'm going to hang right in there with that tonight, because now we go back to April 6th. Remember the regular season visit of Atlanta to Indianapolis. That was the night the Pacers hit bottom. They scored 23 points in the first half. They lost the game 107-88. Then Saturday night, playoff game 1. They trailed in that game by as many as 20 points on their same home floor, where they were the best team in the NBA all year at home. Wow. And they lost 101-93 to a team that's just a mismatch for them for all the reasons you just detailed. They can't keep Teague out of the lane. Hibbert is a mismatch with the 2 big guys because they drift out to the perimeter and shoot threes. Why should I pick Indiana tonight? Just because they used to be Indiana? And I agree with what you said about Vogel. His attitude all year has been kind of a high and mighty, we have arrived. We don't adjust, they adjust to us. So I'm going to be really surprised. Seriously, I'll be surprised if they go dramatically, desperately to, let's put Paul George on Teague, let's put Lance on Teague, let's bench Roy Hibbert, let's start Scola, let's start Chris Copeland, let's start Evan Turner. I don't know who they'd throw in there, but it would be desperate. Again, that's what I would do if I were Vogel. But Larry Bird can also be a guy, you know, with his legacy, who just say, hey, just let it play out. Let them see if they can find themselves tonight. I don't think they will find themselves. Atlanta has caught fire. And as I said yesterday, the Pacers have just caught like a 3-month cold, and they can't get over it. Seriously. When have you last seen them look like the Pacers?
The last time I seen them look some semblance like themselves was when they beat Miami on their home court near the end of the regular season, the game that I was at. But I will tell you this. I want to take a moment to give my man Isaiah Thomas a boatload of credit. He was on NBA TV a couple of weeks ago. Actually, a little more than a week ago, they were asking him about the Indiana Pacers going into the playoffs. And one of the things that he pointed out I thought was incredibly astute, and he's qualified to do it because he's a Hall of Famer and a champion. When you remember when Vogel benched the starting five and just gave them that game off against Milwaukee?
Yep.
Isaiah Thomas was talking about how that's not an indictment against Vogel, it's an indictment against the players. Because when you're struggling like that, if your coach tries to make that move, you stand up in unison collectively and you say, we're not sitting down for anybody. We're not taking this break. We're going to work through this on our own. We don't need this. He felt that that was an indictment against the character of the players on the court, meaning that starting five, because he felt it spoke volumes about who they are and where they were mentally. And so when you allude to what you allude to, you make very valid points, Skip, and I get where you're coming from. It's just that I still know this team to be, if nothing else, they can be an elite defensive team when it's time to step up and defend. They may not be able to score to save their lives, but I do believe they have the capability to completely put you under lock and key. And so that's why I think it'll be interesting. Vogel can't be worried about how things are going to look. He can't be worried about living up to his mantra, we're going to do it our way. Desperate times call for desperate measures. And I think the Indiana Pacers, based on what they did the last 2 months, more so than what they did in Game 1, which is just a continuation of what they've been doing the last 2 months, I think it's desperate times.